from last week, and if there's a motion to adopt those, we'll entertain that.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are adopted. Item number 1, authorization to disperse from District 1 Improvement Funds. Councilor Wilson.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Along with some community stakeholders who are helping me to sponsor a meal for seniors and seasoned saints, as we call them, in District 1 at the Benjamin Barnes YMCA currently. This is the leftover balance that I would like to use from my District 1 funds to pay for that meal that will be, that lunch that will be on next Wednesday at 11 o'clock.
Mr. Crowe and I look forward to it. What's
Come
the
on,
meal?
The meal, well, first of all, the Pinnacle Chef Group is doing it. You will have some collard greens, some ham, chicken, cornbread, macaroni and
Think I'll be
cheese,
there.
sweet potato casserole, all that good stuff, man.
All right. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item is approved. Number 2, for discussion, Saban Center Foundation 2023 agency funding contract, $442,695. Ms. Standridge.
Yes, good afternoon, council. If you will recall, during the fiscal 2023 budget process, one of the items that was brought before the council or the committee and the council was to award a agency funding contract to the Saban Center Foundation in the total amount of $442,695. This was done during the Elevate presentation with the River District Fund spelled out in that line item, and so this is just execution of that agency funding contract.
So are we, you and I swapped some conversation on this. I think one of the things that miscued me, are we treating this as an agency, as agency funding?
Yes, sir. It is just like an agency funding contract, where we will then give funding to an outside foundation for them to do their community work.
But it doesn't show up under our agency funding, right? It shows up in Elevate as part of that $13.5 million capital?
It is, no, it's not part of the capital. It is out of the River District Fund, which Elevate will then fund over to, like, it's kind of like a subset of Elevate. But it's not part of the agency funding contract grouping that's within the general fund, because there is now special set aside under Elevate. And I'll be completely honest with you, like with because this is the new way that we're doing things. This is one of the new foundations that we are funding. This one was just inadvertently left off of our full agency funding contract listing when we did it back during the budget discussions in general.
Okay,
So that's why it's
alright.
just coming up now.
So, but typically it would be on there, is that right?
It would be under the regular ordinance or the regular resolution setting out agency funding within the budget process, yes.
Okay, so we will look forward to bringing that up for a vote next week. Gentlemen, is there any documentation, any supporting documents you need or want for this?
No, sir.
Okay.
So moved.
We will be requesting then double up for this, just because it does need to be executed
fine.
before the first of the year.
That's fine. Well, I don't think we need a motion, we just,
Okay.
actually we need to,
Table.
yeah,
Or no.
yeah, to bring it up for authorization next week. That would be the motion.
So, Mr. Chair, I offer a motion that we would bring this up next week to be doubled up.
Is there a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, done. Item number 3, issues of warrant series 2022C for $62 million and $885. Road improvements, Commissioner McWright's Ferry Road, Ms. Standridge.
Yes,
I see we
Council.
have distinguished visitors here as well.
This is the final award, or the final full adoption for the warrant series 2022C. Par amount of $62,885,000, and then total principal bonded amount of $65,500,000. This is just the final award. We did pricing last week. We were in the market, and we actually got really good prices this last time around. Actually, better than what we did back in June, July-ish. This is all the funding for this debt service is covered under the funding agreement with TCRIC, which the council adopted and we executed last week. And so this is a fully reimbursable transaction.
And in big conceptual blocks, not necessarily details, but Mr. Crowe and I were talking in conversation with you before the meeting. The award amount that we saw in projects was 53 million and change. The par amount was what?
So par amount is 62, is what's listed on the front of the agenda. That is 62,885,000.
62.8, and then what did we bring in?
So the total principal bonded amount is going to be 65,500.
So we sold them at premiums,
At premium.
obviously.
Yes,
And
sir.
65 and 53, so there's about $12 million difference in there. In big chunks, what accounts for that difference?
So the right-of-way acquisition total is just over $6 million. There's a few transactions that were just direct paid from TCRIC. That totals about $3.5 million. So those two together, plus the premium amount, will be the difference.
Okay, perfect. Gentlemen, any questions? All right, let's light this.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Be on council tonight. Item number 4, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Woodson, renewal of NCAA
Yes, sir, this is.
liability insurance.
It is actually I think that's a typo. It should be the NDAA. This is,
I was curious.
we like our sports around here still. This is the liability insurance it's the malpractice insurance for the attorneys in my office. This is something that dates back, Lord, I think maybe Bob may have come up with this. We joined the National District Attorneys Association because my office does oversee the prosecution in municipal court. We're able to get this malpractice insurance for much cheaper than we would be able to get it just out on the open market. I think the total is about $8,200 for all of us. It's the same amount as it was last year. It is budgeted. It just comes up and is due at the end of the year.
All right, gentlemen, any questions?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item is approved. Ms. Standridge, we wanted to continue, I realize it's somewhat anticlimactic, given the adoption of the resolution last week. But in the time we've got remaining, because we did run out of time last week, I wanted to continue the discussion that we started last week on the RSA conversions, and using the slides that you already had up there is fine. Let's walk through them.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Vicki. Vicki already had it queued for us. Okay. What would you like to look at?
All right, so we got to the total we think it's going to cost.
Gotcha.
Yes, we-
Oh, back, there you go.
Is blank,
There you go.
the 8.1,
Yes, sir.
okay? That's pretty simple. Now, where do we think the 8.1 is gonna come from?
Okay, so that's this valuation, that picture. Which I can walk through again if you wanna.
Narrate.
Do you mean that you, okay,
Yeah.
we'll walk through it a little bit.
And
I'll go.
again, as we
Sorry,
discussed
Stacy, go.
during the week, it can be in larger chunks. I'm not so much interested in all the little pieces.
Sure. Okay, so this is, like I said before, we had two viewpoints, right? We had a 2027 conversion date and a 2026 conversion date. So this is a 2027 conversion date. We'll go to the 2026 one in a second. But in general, you know, this top section here is going to be what we already have working in what we call the public safety fund. So you'll see every year we will have a surplus within that fund. And, you know, that's based off of the revenues that are already coming in, and then the outflows from the pay plan. And so our surplus every year is going to be
The
listed here.
outflows from the pay plan.
Yes,
The
sir.
outflows from the pay plan.
Yes, sir.
What does that mean?
So the fund in general is set up with the revenues at this top section. These are the revenues, which I kind of went through individually the last time. So you'll see a total of revenues, and then the amount that flows out of the fund is the upgrade cost for the new public safety plan.
Okay, the cost of paying out the salary increases.
Yes, right,
Check.
correct. Salary and benefit increases and
Okay,
overtime
so-
and all that. So then within the fund, we'll come down to a surplus every year. So this is the amount that we kind of have already working to spend on an RSA conversion.
This is the amount we have already working.
Already like churning.
Already working or set aside?
Well, I mean, obviously, any set-asides can change any year, but like if we were to keep the operation of the public safety fund as is right now, that's what we can see for like a surplus deficit within the fund.
A surplus deficit within the fund.
Surplus slash deficit.
Okay. So grossly oversimplifying it so that I can stay in track with it. That's looking at 27. There's revenues of, what is that, 6.9?
6.8, yep.
6.8
Mm-hmm.
coming in. We're gonna have to take some out of that to meet the increased salaries and benefits. Those will total to 4.5. So at the end of the day there, we're about 2.3 million that we have available. Check?
Check.
Okay.
Okay, so we have 2.3 million-ish that's available to spend on an RSA conversion. And then, so the next section down is options that we could do. The first one is that maintaining that 13% of withholdings of all the rank and file. So as we discussed last week, tier 1 withholdings for public safety under RSA is 6%. Tier 2 for public safety under RSA is 8.5%. So if we were to maintain withholdings at 13% in this first year, we could anticipate getting an extra amount of about $3 million out of those withholdings
Okay.
to
So,
apply.
all
And then within this model, I stair step it down over 5 years. So, you know, first year.
That first year, again, we would think 26, not 27. But we've got
And I have that one
we got
listed.
2.3 up top. There's another 3.
3, yeah, really right.
3, so we're up over 5. All right, we're at 5.3.
Right?
Okay.
Okay, and so then the next section down is going to be the debt roll loss that we talked about. So in 2027, we have a public safety radio lease of about $930,000 that rolls off, and another 2014 debt service payment of about $1.5 million that rolls off. So in total, that's about $2.4 million that we have available in our budget capacity to be able to pay for RSA.
Okay.
So if you take all those 3 together, if you take the surplus in the current public safety fund that's projected, plus the amount of over withholdings, and that 13% withholding, plus the debt roll loss, we have a total amount available for conversion of about $7.7 million
When does the debt roll off start?
in 2027. It's
27.
the first year.
Okay.
Which is why, so not to skip ahead too quickly, which is why when I say like heck, we could do it 1 year sooner, in 2026 we don't have these debt roll-offs,
Okay.
and so we're just kind of a lot worse in our picture.
Okay, but having familiarized ourselves with the big block pieces.
Okay.
What does 26 look like?
Okay. Well, so I'm going to cover one quick thing before we go to 2026. Okay, so we have about 7.7 million sitting here within this projection to possibly pay for conversion. If you will recall, we had a save up over like between now and conversion date.
Right.
So that save up amount is what we can kind of eat away at here and here and here, like just to kind of make up that amount to the
And
8.1.
what is that?
That is, so that kind of shows you here, this cumulative projected total at the bottom. So in fiscal 2026, I have about 5.3 million.
Okay.
And then if we were to, set aside all the departmental savings, we possibly could have another 7.3 million.
We
So
possibly could have another,
Or possibly have 7.3 million. total.
okay, in the piggy bank that we can use to augment the annual production of revenues and savings.
You got it.
Okay.
So that's kind of what this is right here, these 2 lines, is that this line is showing how much we would need to help make up to get to that 8.1 million from what we have in this line. And then this line here just shows the accumulated surplus that's remaining. So like, before there was that, so 7.35.
Yeah.
If we,
And that was, Carly, that 7.35 was by 26,
yeah, by the end of 26, yes, sir.
by the end of 26.
End of 26, yes, sir. So if we had that 7.3 million and we used up 450,000 this year to kind of get to 8.1 that we need, we would have 6.8 left over in the
Okay.
piggy bank.
All right.
So this is just kind of like the remaining amount in that piggy bank
All
every
right.
year. All right, so we go to 2026 conversion date. So a look 1 year sooner. Everything else is set up the same. Our withholding changes a little bit just because the, COLA, the step raise isn't in there, so it goes down just a little bit, one more extra year. So it goes down just a little bit. But then we don't have the debt roll-offs. And so we can still eat away at the piggy bank, but when we eat away at the piggy bank, I go negative starting in 2029.
Okay, so in the illustration for 27, we were how much short of our,
In 27, we were short 550,000 the first year.
and flip to 26, so in 26, because there's a little wiggle in the withholding and we don't have the debt roll-off, how short are we?
We're short about 3.7 million.
3.7.
And not to complicate matters, but because of especially this, Social Security issue that I kind of talked about before, if we were to not be able to, if we were to be required to put all police and fire under under Social Security, we would need an extra 2.8 million in the
Over and
year.
above everything we've talked about so
Over and above
far.
everything else that we talked about. Plus, the fire and police officers are going to have to contribute their Social Security. So therefore, this withholding possibility just kind of gets called into question because we can't ask them to withhold 20% of their paycheck. So then this amount goes away. So then the amount needed to be able to make up to that 8.1 million plus the 2.8 million for Social Security, we're now looking at a $6.5 million need. I didn't draw that out specifically on here, but that's just the number that we're looking at.
When do we, and this is a joint question, Earth to Mr. Holmes, from Earth to Mr. Holmes, when do we know about that issue and who is it we know from? Are
So-
we making a legal appeal to some authority, or are we getting the legislature to approve something?
On Social Security,
Right.
Ms. Sanders and I are actually going to Birmingham on Monday to meet with, actually, Mr. Staples helps on some of the tax side as well as his partners, and we'll start to flesh that out more. That's something that they have actually started to do the work on for some other entities they've represented going through this process, but haven't
They,
quite
the
gotten.
firm, the law
They're
firm
the firm,
we've
yes,
hired?
sir. But they haven't quite gotten it to the finish line. Ultimately, there may be an AG's opinion involved in it, but that's something that we're still gonna have to flesh out as part of the research process. But I think that's gonna be kind of step one.
And I know that Mr. Crow requested a timeline last week, and I kind of did a very, very, very rough one, and that is included, I'm sorry, Scott, I didn't mean to just kick you out, but, so that is included in the timeline, is I'm hoping, and this is again, giving as much leeway as possible to whatever legal research needs to be done, but I'm hoping to have an answer of Social Security at least by the end of the next calendar year. So December 2023, I would like to have an answer about Social Security so we can value in with this kind of projection, that idea.
Okay. Help me frame up this sentence to myself. At the moment, as we all know the frailties with pro formas, but that's the best tool we've got right now. Given the pro formas that we're building on how to do this, right now, we think best case for 26, we are going to be blank short. Worst case, we could be blank short.
Best case scenario.
Would be the,
Best case scenario of a fiscal 26 conversion, we can cover it until fiscal 29. because we have that piggy bank.
What we got built up.
Right. Worst case, in 26, I need a calculator.
If we got a dead end on the social security, that's worst case, right?
Yes, that's correct. Give me 2 seconds. Talk amongst yourselves. Give me 2 seconds.
But it was more the big. Charging 25,000 square foot.
Yeah, okay, so I'm trying to think if I thought through this correctly. Worst case scenario,
Worst case would be we don't get the waiver, is that what it's called?
Right,
From the
so-
Social Security.
right, so worst case scenario, the first year,
could
we
cover
would
it.
need a influx in 2026 alone, like just start, like if we use up all of our piggy bank in 26, plus some extra that we would need. 5.3. We would need 4.1 million in 26.
That's after using what we've,
So after using the whole piggy bank.
okay,
I'm right about that, right?
Carly, how much of that is dependent upon stock market performance intervening?
None of that is,
We're not even
none of that is
factoring that
contingent
in.
upon stock market. Yeah, 5.3, I was right, yeah.
I'll sit up here and stay away from your numbers then.
so,
Now that, I mean, you know, that is another, caveat is that, let's say that the stock market just like bulldozes and the assets that we currently have in the police and fire pension investment accounts just blow through the roof, our valuation will go down. And so the amount that it will cost us to, you know, required employer contribution amounts would go down every year. But, you know, that's a big old
yeah,
lift.
yeah, but again, pro formas are not perfect tools, but they're the best we have right now. And I don't think, certainly at this stage, I don't think we could risk compounding it by trying to factor the even more unknowable and unpredictable market performance in there.
And I will say that the pension board is very aware of this, and the need to protect the asset at all cost. So I do think that, you know, the volatility of the market is a factor to think about, but it's something that the pension board is, I think, working towards minimizing as much as possible.
All right. First, thank you. This is the
Absolutely.
level that I wanted to get to. Leave me with the best case and worst case as we know it.
Okay, so best case scenario, and we, and Chiefs and I have gone round and round about this, but I do believe that fiscal 27, and Chiefs, I can tell you that fiscal 27 really does encompass 2026 too. So October 2026, if we converted October 2026, in best case scenario, I think that we could 100% pay for this, no problem. Worst case scenario, and we stuck with an early 2026, so like, you know, January, March-ish 2026, and we did not get Social Security, a favorable opinion for Social Security, we could look at another $5 million a year of new revenue necessary.
After consuming all that we've saved.
That's
up
just
to-
in year one, yes, sir.
All right. Gentlemen, any other questions? Thank you very much. And I apologize for the redundancy, but I know I'm gonna have to hear this multiple times so it becomes
Sure.
an intuitive, working knowledge that we can grasp and talk about.
You got it. And one thing that I did lay out a little bit more of a timeline. I would like to go over it just so
Sure.
that we can talk about what we could be doing in the upcoming months. So, you know, February through May 2023, we have the legislative term, and so we'll be working on the amendment to this to the state law that governs the police and fire pension fund. December 2023, like I mentioned, I would like to have the advice received back regarding Social Security application. And then at that time, I would also like to have a new Kavanaugh McDonald updated valuation report so that we can redo some of these projection numbers. Fall, winter of 2024, I would like to request a revenue review. If we are going to need, by that point, we will have had the new Kavanaugh McDonald valuation report. We would know if we would need extra revenue. So I would like to have that general review kind of already in focus. Revenue review, and then final preliminary CAVMAC update for cost evaluation, redo some of these projections. January through March 2025, a final vote for conversion and any new revenue items by the council. March 2025 through March 2026 would be like the litigation period and then RSA administration period. So that's when we would kind of, check all of the boxes about being able to do conversion. And then if anybody was going to sue us for the for that changeover, we could, I guess, use that time period for any litigation. And then, of course, the actual conversion date I have is October 2026.
What was the January vote again, Carly?
So January to March 2025-ish, it's just the final vote for conversion. At that point, we'd have all updated information for the valuation, and then plus we would be able to have talks about possible revenues. And so January to March 2025, I would like for the actual conversion vote to happen. Yes, we are executing an agreement with RSA to start the conversion process.
Right.
Is part of this that the employees have to vote?
That will be in that next ensuing period. There will have to be a vote of
And I would
both the.
presume they'd vote for it, chiefs.
Yeah, the pension board has already voted for that.
But
And
do
I'm
the
gonna
individual
echo my
employees,
2026 conversion date.
do the individual employees have a vote?
that
Just
it-
curious, yeah.
Obviously, we would wait on a final advice from
Yeah.
our attorney, but from what we can read within the statute, yes, a full vote of the active membership
Right.
is required.
Okay, any other questions?
No, sir.
Again, Ms. Sanders, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I can't imagine why they wouldn't vote.
That is the business on the finance agenda today. Is there any additional business to be brought before the committee? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Finance is adjourned.